Hi, I'm Nidhi and welcome. And I'm a health food blogger. So I blog a lot about healthy food and gluten-free food, everyday food, and simple food. So raise your hands if you love chocolate and you love brownies and you love cookies. So what we are doing today is a very delicious dish where I am trying to infuse the brownie and the cookie. So this is going to be a mix of the two. Have the edges of a cookie and have the very nice gooey center of a brownie. So let's get started. It's a simple dish and not too many ingredients. It's kitchen staples. It's a gluten-free recipe, but you can always make it with gluten, and I will guide you step by step. And then to this I'm going to add around a cup of dark chocolate. So once we add the dark chocolate, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. Now this butter needs to be at room temperature so that melting becomes easy, and the chocolate can be around 80 to 90% cocoa, so that we have a nice rich fudgy cookie. So now here you take a bowl like this. This is double boiling, and here what happens is a lot of people prefer it to microwave. You could always microwave it, but I prefer double boiling because there is no fear of burning the chocolate. So in one corner you can just double boil these. Now we will just add our dry and wet ingredients. Let's start with the wet ingredients first. So we are taking 2 eggs. We crack the eggs in a bowl. And the eggs should also be at room temperature. I prefer organic eggs if possible, and the crust really comes out nice. So we are using eggs over here, half a cup of brown sugar, tightly packed. Brown sugar gives a nice moisture to these fudgy brownie cookies, and I want to call these Brookies. These are like Brookie and cookie mixed together. And now we are just going to whisk it up. Now whisking will help to fold in a lot of air. So the egg and the brown sugar, it has been incorporated very well. Half a cup of almond flour. You could also use all-purpose flour if you don't have almond flour, and if you don't want to make it gluten-free, it's absolutely okay. So here goes half a cup of almond flour, and almond flour has a lot of these knots, so sieving it makes it more uniform. And then I'm going to add cocoa powder. So we are using 2 kinds of chocolate, so it becomes rich and fudgy and very dark. And you can see how many knots these have and lumps it has, so it's important that we sieve it. And half a teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And as we are baking, it's important that we should always be baking with correct measurements and using the correct measuring teaspoons, so that we can get the perfect results all the time. The chocolate mixer in the wet mix. So there we have the chocolate. And keep mixing so that there are no lumps and it mixes well. Keep mixing the chocolate. And it's a very nice simple dish where you don't need too many ingredients, and the fudgy brownie flavor that comes out is really delicious. So this becomes a wet mix, and to the wet mix I'm going to use the dry mix. So my dry mix, which has been sifted, and all the baking powder and salt that has gone in. And as I told you, this can also be made with whole all-purpose flour. So feel free in case you don't have almond flour at the moment. And just a small tip that I want to give you is almond meal and almond flour are two different things. They are not the same. So almond meal is when we just blend the almonds, but for the almond flour, they are peeled and then they are then they are blended. So it's a difference of the two. So it's important that if we can source it from outside. Almond meal you can make it at home, but almond flour needs to be sourced from outside, because peeling and then making it may become little troublesome. And I'm using almond flour is because it is full of proteins, it is full of good fats, it is full of antioxidants, and most importantly, it's very delicious. It's very rich, creamy, and very delicious. So this gives a nice rich taste to this cookie without adding too much of butter. We've just added 3 tablespoons of butter. Normally a cookie and a brownie requires a lot of butter. So your batter is ready. Here you see the batter is, and now we'll take a parchment paper. And here also I'd like to just because we are baking, and some few tips that I want to share with you. One is to use a cookie sheet and not a baking pan, because here when you do it in a cookie sheet, the cookies really come out crisp because these are really thin. Secondly is to use a baking paper and not a wax paper. People get confused between baking paper and wax paper. We should be using baking paper. Thirdly, I have seen from my own experience that on a silicone mat, the cookies, they spread a lot. So here I'm going to use I'm going to use a baking paper. So here we have these crispy, chocolatey, gooey cookies, and you see how they are crispy and yet they are so fudgy. And now I'm just going to break these and show you. The shapes are indefinite because the amount of batter you pour, but these make 9 to 10 cookies, or brookies as we call them. And now I'm just going to show you with the center broken how nice these are. So there you have cookies, brookies, brownies. Taste test and show you that these are so good, or what is it really inside. These are really decadent, really chocolatey, and I hope you like the recipe as much as I did. And as for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recipe as much as we did, and for the next time, bye bye.